off his clothes. Then they took long leather thongs with steel pellets or lead pellets on the end and beat him across the back until he could hardly stand up. Then they put a crown of thorns on his brow and his face was bleeding. And they laughed at him and they spit on him and they mocked him. And with one snap of his finger, 72,000 angels had already drawn their swords ready to come to his rescue and wipe this planet out of existence in the universe. And Jesus said, no, to this end was I born. He wasn't just another revolutionary. He wasn't just another hippie. He was not just another great man. He was God in the flesh. And oh, the ethics that he taught.
Hey y'all, welcome to the second episode of the Revival Podcast. We're so excited to have you here again, and we're just going to be discussing various different things today, but mostly faith in a small school. So Miles, why don't you introduce our special guest here today?
So with us today, we have Brody Richardson. We call him SJ. There's a story behind that I will let him get into, but I went to school with him. He plays, well, I'll let him tell you what he plays, but I go to school with him. He's a senior this year at Lauderdale County. So SJ, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Brody Richardson, and I go to Lauderdale County High School. I'm an upcoming senior, and I play football, baseball, cross country, track, and I wrestle. And everybody calls me SJ. Sorry. Everybody calls me SJ because of the movie The Blind Side. I used to look like a little kid when I was younger, when I didn't have no hair, no mustache. So,
if we could add we're going to add the pop-up picture of you.
That's true. Yeah, that'd help people.
That is a pretty impressive mustache, though. I gotta say, I'm envious of it, honestly.
It's like second place to the dad in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
I wish I could just grow this and not this. I shaved yesterday, and I had to shave right here because it was no man.
I just grow like a neck.
Yeah, it makes
like
a better. I can't stand it.
Like a Nero neck beard. Well, all right. To move on, I know you got a few verses for us today, and just what do you want to talk about today?
Just this verse in specific, Proverbs 27:17. It is, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another, and that's different depending on the translation. But that really plays a big role in my life, playing sports and going to such a small school and having such a small community. Because I've never really thought about it until I really read into it and did think about it into more depth. But no matter what you do, playing sports, going outside with your dad, working with somebody, learning from somebody, it really is iron sharpens iron. Everything you do, working out, it's whatever. You can't play football without 11 guys on each side of the ball, making each other better every time you touch the field. You can't have a coworker and have a good bond without talking to one another and strengthening each other in whatever you do. And the same thing in the church. I think community is so important. In my youth group, I love the community, and I wouldn't be as good of a Christian as I am without the community around me. And I like to think that I strengthen the people around me, and that's my goal, is to strengthen everybody around me.
Yeah. So a big thing, a big part of your testimony, we want to talk about today, is you said going to a small school. I know me and Thomas, we both go, and you went to a small school. We go to, in Alabama, we have rankings 1 through 7A, and so y'all are 3A, correct? And we are 1A. We are very, very small. So, and we go to a small private Christian, or I used to, and you do now. And Thomas, just tell us some about your experiences so far, and then we'll just kind of go around and just talk about that and faith in the small schools.
Well, as far as faith in a small school, and us being a Christian school, it's a little bit different because that's the emphasis. But of course, just how close knit everybody is. You know that not everybody you're around is a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Not all the things you're going to be invited to do are going to be Christian things. So you have to be. You can't for a second sort of be distracted and think that, just because this is sort of under a Christian umbrella, that everything I do is going to be glorifying to God, because obviously He still gives us His Holy Spirit to discern things and know, maybe I should be doing this, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. And I just think, being in a smaller school, like we are and so many other people are, is you cherish the close knitness of everything, but you also have to be very careful.
Go ahead, man.
Just like I said, it's just like the community thing. Like everybody's so close. You learn more about each other than you do if you went to a big school. Like some schools, people don't even know who all is in their graduating class, which is just insane to me. That's just crazy. I can't even comprehend it. But like at Lauderdale County, I mean, I've had at least a few conversations with everybody in my class, I feel like, and I know at least to some extent like how they are inside and outside of school, whether they go to church or not, whether they are saved, as far as I can see. Like it really kind of eye opening to me, like how many people are out there that kind of just like put on that religious act rather than really
the math.
That's a
really rather than living for the Lord. Like you ask somebody the question, "Are you religious?" I really don't like that because
I don't either. Yeah,
it's really not being religious. It's having a relationship with the Lord rather than putting on that mask, like you said, of just like showing up to church on Sunday, some Wednesday, and just saying I have a Bible, saying I read my Bible, sending someone a picture when you do read your Bible. Like,
they're the people that want to, as soon as Sunday hits, they're the first people to let you know that they're at church.
Exactly.
But when Monday rolls around or Friday night rolls around, they're back out partying and doing stuff that worldly things doesn't show Christ in them. It's all that. I mean, there's nothing. What would be the best way of going around saying that without making people mad? There's no. It's a mask. There's no godliness in them, even though they're acting like there's a godliness in them. There's not, and it's just that's what they're all the sports that we play. Sports is a big part of high school around here: football, baseball, basketball, whatnot. And that's what like my point right here I have is: am I a follower or am I a leader? As a teammate, am I helping to build a relationship with Jesus, or am I following the wrong leader and drawing myself further from Jesus? And that was this past baseball season. That was the biggest. We had leaders, and I take upon myself that I didn't do my job to the best of my ability. But we had the leaders; they were the wrong leaders.
Yeah,
and it was getting everybody was mad at each other, and it was just tearing us away from being a team as a whole.
So I guess I'll share my experience. So I also went to a small private Christian school, and everyone does get everyone gets the idea that everyone's a Christian there, which is not the case whatsoever, which is really sad. But just as kind of like the world looks into like America, like everyone thinks, oh, everyone there goes to church or the Bible. I'll go specifically not America, but the Bible Belt. But so many people, like you said, are putting on that mask. Are just going to church Wednesday and Sunday and not truly doing the things that they need to do to be a Christian, which is putting their faith in living for the Lord, living a life for Jesus Christ. And you see that so much. And I was chaplain, and Thomas is about to be chaplain at Shoals Christian too. And so it's just, you see more of that. You see just the deadness. We have chapel services. See just like the deadness, which has gotten better. It's gotten better thanks to some leadership voices.
Yeah.
And it's gotten a lot better, but you can just see that it's just a religious mindset. Like the Pharisees. They did all these things on the outside, but Jesus called them whitewashed tombs.
Oh yeah, and another thing, this is something that my dad has taught me. He said, the people that are just outwardly religious and sort of into sort of the checklist of things. Jesus wasn't even good enough for those people. Really, because they were making so many categories that were outside of what really God had wanted for them, So if Jesus wasn't even good for the checklist crowd, you're never going to be.
Yeah.
So don't try to please those people. Please God.
That's very good. And so, so many people are just, like you said, be the first to be at church on Sunday, but be the first to party on Friday.
And they'll be the first ones to let you know.
Yeah.
They'll be the first ones to put something on their story. Or if they look at their Bible one time a week during the week. But what I was talking with my parents was, why would you want to spend, I'll even branch out and say, 3 hours a week with the Lord, like by yourself, but that you still want to spend an eternity with him in heaven? Like, you're only going to give him that much time during the week, and then the rest of it you're doing back to worldly stuff.
Yeah.
Yet you still think you should spend eternity with him in heaven.
Yeah, it's almost like they think like all those days they spend out, like the Lord's Day is Sunday. I also think that like them going that day or them going Wednesday is going to make up for that.
Yes.
When in reality, every day of the week should be the Lord's Day for you.
So that's a lot of the Americanized gospel.
Yeah.
Me and Max have had a lot of talks
Yeah.
about.
And I'm going to be the first to say we're all guilty of that.
Oh,
Yes. Yeah.
We are
At
all,
some point in our lives,
at some point of our life,
we've lived that
Yes.
checklist mentality.
So we don't want to be perceived that we are better than anyone else because we're all sinners.
Kind of like an experience thing. Like we're playing, like we've been on the wrong side of it.
Yes, we have. And, but there's God's grace. God has given us grace, and but we don't want to abuse that grace like so many people do. We'll just keep on and keep on and keep on, and not living for the Lord and abusing the gift of grace. So that's a big thing. That's also another big thing you want to look into a Christian school or just a small school in the South, and specifically in the South. Because, like you said, most of the people living that religious lifestyle, but abusing God's grace, but there is an hour that will come where we've breathed our final breath. There is a day where that will come, and so why not go ahead and get it right and live a life for Christ instead of just putting it off, because we don't know when that day will come. And so I think we need to share that with lots of urgency in our schools, in our communities, and even in our churches.
Yeah.
Because there's a religious mindset in a lot of churches today, too. Just that checking off the box, you know? So that's just, like, we just need to be better examples and be better witnesses for Christ, no matter how old or how young we are. And that's a point that I wanted to get to, is a verse in 1 Timothy 4:12. This is kind of a verse that I'll live my life by. I'll try to live my life by. And it says, "Let no one despise you for your youth, but set believers an example in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity." We can just kind of discuss about that, what you think about that, and just being an example for those who are younger than us.
You know, I think like, especially at like a sports thing, we have a lot of people that, kids wise, that come watch our game.
Yeah.
But you don't want to be the guy that runs over to the side or something and mouths off something, gets mouthy with somebody. Yeah. And then those kids are right there hearing it. Well, what are they going to do when they go? They're going to do the same thing. Versus where you can be humble and show your faith in sports. You can. I mean, it's out there to be done. Just nobody does it because it's, especially in the South, like, language is like one of the worst things to me that happens around the South, because everybody's mouth is bad. Really.
Yeah. And there's a real double standard, That's another thing. Some people are like, oh, well, cuss on Sunday, but then the rest of the week, dude, you can't be around.
Yeah. Like, and it's one of the big points. God's always watching.
Amen.
Yeah.
He can't hide from him. I mean, he knows everything you say, everything you think. And it's just, for kids, I know for me, for kids that look up to you, it like put you to think in a different perspective of somebody's watching my every move.
Yeah.
I don't want to mess up, because all it takes is one time you mess up and those kids are like, he just said what I think he just said, or did he just do what I think he just did? Versus keeping them pointed in the right direction of, let your faith be bigger than, show your faith more than anything else you do.
Yeah.
And it can almost come down to like a comparison type thing. Because, I mean, rejection is terrifying. It is scary. And it's almost like, I think comparing yourself in anything, but especially in your faith, is terrible. It can be like, oh, Miles isn't professing his faith while he plays sports. Why should I?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Miles isn't showing this on or off the court. Why should I? Like, it can really lead you away. And I find it hard, like from an evangelistic standpoint, like an example standpoint, it's harder to talk to people that you know and your friends, rather than it is knocking on some random person's door.
Yeah.
Because rejection is terrifying. It is. Let's be honest. Rejection is terrifying. And it's just, it can be harder to show that and not put that on, but make it public to people you know rather than a random group of people.
And that's what I wish I'd have known years before, was don't be scared to lose friends because they don't
over the right
your faith.
Yes.
Like, if they're trying to drag you away from the Lord, I mean,
It's the Lord's side.
I mean, don't let them just go and, you still want to talk to them and still give them the gospel and stuff, but you don't need to coach yourself with those people. And that's kind of what this verse is that we'll get to here in a minute.
Yeah.
But y'all continue talking on that.
Like you were saying with the friends thing, it's like, you're walking up the stairs of heaven and you didn't talk to your friend. You let your friend be because you thought that they were just leading you away. And like, I agree, you do need to distance yourself in a way, but I think you also need to stay in touch because think about how mad you would be if you seen your friend that lived his life right and he made it and you didn't. You're going to perish in the pits of hell.
Yeah.
How mad would you be that you didn't say, follow me?
Yeah.
The Lord is the way.
Mm-hmm.
There's a really good podcast episode of Cliff and them that's all about that.
Yeah, it's he kind of talks about Cliff, one of my biggest mentors in faith, even though I've never met him, which hopefully one day I love to. Cliff Connectley. Yeah, Cliff Connectley. I think I'm saying his name right. And his son Stuart. They go all over college campuses and they are on podcasts. And their whole big thing is just answering questions, helping skeptics, helping people on college campuses.
Yeah.
So they were on George Janko's podcast, and he said, he made a good point about sharing the gospel. He said, what if you're going, when the rapture happens, or when you die, you go up to heaven and you see your friends around you. He said, saying, why didn't you tell me? That's such a like a gut wrenching thing because we love our friends. And so if you love your friend, what you should do is share the gospel with them.
Yeah.
And not just a fake thing, not just just share one thing with them, but the true gospel. Even if that means hurting their feelings a little bit. Because ultimately Jesus hurt some feelings. But out of love. He hurt a lot of feelings out of love. And so we're doing all that out of love. And just kind of get on the influences thing where you were talking about being impressionable. Like kids, like 7th grade and 8th grade is like the most impressionable time of your life. And that was very true because like even I played sports, going to a Christian school, like I was around a bunch of guys who had a lot of language issues. And I heard it a lot. And when you hear it a lot, you start to repeat it some. And
you want to fit in with
you want to fit in.
Think it's cool.
Yeah. And like even like I had one time I was in a locker room and like one dude asked me, he was like, you're weird because you don't watch porn.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just thought to myself, I'm like, this can't be right. I'm like, that just kind of stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
And just all the bad things, all the bad influences that you can so easily choose to be the other way.
Yeah.
Choose to be the person that stands up for the gospel. And just so being knowledgeable on who's around you, and because you never know, like you said, you never know who's watching you. You never know like what kid's looking up to you. And in baseball, I know there was like a lot of 7th graders who they looked up to me. And I remember I was like, I got mad or something one time and I was like, I need to be more of an example for Christ.
Yeah.
And so I kind of took it upon myself and asked the Lord to help me to be a better example for those kids.
Which good thing, because even in those situations, Christ makes it so that when we apologize for, y'all, I gotta let y'all know I shouldn't have behaved that way, shouldn't have acted that way. Even in our apology, we're pointing to Christ.
Yeah.
And not to give us an excuse to act wrong, but we know that if we do, asking, please, I don't want to be this way. Y'all know that.
Yeah.
But that's just what happened. But Christ is glorified, even in the midst of, all that.
That's like, you never know what people are going through.
Yeah.
Like,
No.
even like, I've known situations that had gone on from kids out of the baseball field come up to tell me that something's happened or family member dies or somebody's sick and it's not looking good for them. And some of the older guys that'll just beat them down. I'm like, if you knew what I knew, you wouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, it's hard to do because you want to, those are your teammates where the younger kid might not be your teammate. everybody happy on one baseball team or a basketball team or a football team goes a long ways. But it's one of those you got to knock them down a little bit, like tell them to quit, but you do it in a godly way that they realize not to do.
Shows an example, kind
of.
Yes.
Because there's been way more, especially this past year, of things that had happened, and then some of the older guys just. It's not. I don't like the word bullying, but just hurtful things saying to them, and you don't know what they're going through.
Yeah.
So it's just one thing that I hope changes in times that don't happen as much in college.
And that'll change as different people mature.
That's a lot of it.
Maturity level is a lot of it, but you can't let maturity level always be an excuse for ungodliness.
Yep.
Yes, agreed.
And so no matter like it's like Paul says, no matter what age you are, Timothy was a young man. We don't know exactly how old he was, but he was a leader in the church. So no matter how young or old, you can get plugged in your church. You can be some kind of leader. You can help teach children's church, or you can help be a leader in your youth group. Even as a 7th or an 8th grader, there's a place for you to be a leader for the Lord. And so there's always do everything you can for the Lord. And even being a leader, be a servant leader. Submitting to Christ, but helping lead others. Because that's so Christ was a servant leader. He served others, but he was also the most influential person he's the most influential person of his time and throughout all history. I will argue.
Still influential.
Still, yes. And because he was God, ultimately. Yeah, God in the flesh. Yes. So, Miles, you had a few verses?
Yeah, and it's kind of based off what we just talked about, kind of surrounding yourself with godly people, but don't let those people that aren't godly, don't let them go.
Yeah.
So it's 1 Corinthians 15:33 through 34, and it says, "Do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals. Wake up from your drunken stupor, as it is right, and do not go on sinning, for some have no knowledge of God. I say this to your shame." And that goes, when you surround yourself with godly people, other people will want to be with you. Like those non-godly people.
Yeah.
All it takes is them to hear one thing and they're like, I'm kind of interested in what they're talking about. They start hanging out with you and you start rubbing off on them, and they might get a relationship with Christ through you, or it could go right the opposite. You surround yourself with ungodly people, you will follow those paths. Like, there's more followers today. Like, kids now are so much more followers than they are. Because I think this one person, hey, this guy's pretty cool. I'm going to hang out with that guy. But then they go out and they do who knows what. And that person that followed them, hey, he does it. Can I do it?
Yeah.
So they start doing it, and then more people hang out, and then everybody start feeling downhill. But if you can surround yourself with, I've been more than blessed to have y'all three godly friends. Like,
us too.
It's beyond blessed to have people like that in my life. And I mean, there's more. It's not just y'all three.
Yeah.
But to be able to be surrounded by you guys has helped me in my walk in faith. Because it's like, I know Max, I've had endless conversations with him about faith and stuff, and Max is one that leads me on the right track. Even when I kind of lean this way, hey, you need to get back over here.
And right back at you, because sometimes, we get off path with our walk.
Yep.
But then even by someone else's example, you can be like, man, that person's living a godly life, and I need to do this also, not for that person, but for Christ.
Yep.
Like getting your Bible more, not giving into temptation as much. Because it's a hard walk as a Christian.
But just because you turn to Christ don't make life easier. Matter of fact, it's probably just going to get harder.
Yes. Yeah. Because the whole world, Satan uses the whole world to, push against you.
That's right.
And it's very easy to go with it. But as a Christian, we should turn to Christ always.
Yep.
So, yeah.
That's
all I got.
y'all got anything?
Y'all got any closing statements or anything?
Godspeed.
Yeah, Godspeed.
Well, SJ, it's a blessing to have you on, brother.
First guest.
Thank y'all for having me.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have go left-handed.
Appreciate it.
Y'all pray for Miles' arm. Just had surgery on it. Scraping off a bone spur. Nothing too serious.
I
Should be. So y'all be in prayer for that. And also, we need some recommendations on what to put on that side of the wall, because all we have is a really small Need to Breathe poster in Dark Vader.
So if y'all want to donate anything to us, we'll be more than happy.
So just DM us with any suggestions or anything, and DM us with feedback on what y'all think about the podcast. And we really, really appreciate y'all tuning in and share this to get the gospel to more people, you know. And we will see y'all next week. So God bless. Go ahead.
Oh, another thing, nobody's teaching us how to do this. We're learning.
This is a learning process.
Yes.
So, we're trying to improve week by week.
Yes.
Just bear with us.
Just bear with us, but
we'll get there.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. So thank y'all, and Lord bless y'all. And that's all, unless y'all have anything else.
Hey, SJ, you got anything? You good? Got it covered. We appreciate you coming on.
Yep.
Appreciate y'all for having me.
We'll have you back one day too, man.
I'm in.
All right. All right. Y'all have a good one. Hey, y'all. This is Max and Miles from the Revival Podcast, and we got a new episode coming out this Friday.
The episode's going to be on the creation and fall and how that all ties back into Christ. So we hope y'all tune in and watch the video with us.
And God bless y'all.